Hello and welcome back to the Delve podcast. I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam. I'm the Executive and Clinical Director at Delft Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Help us spread the word with our podcast. We're not trying for fame here. We don't plan to run any ads, so it's very listener friendly. We're just trying to add value and be helpful to as many people as possible. So if you find value in this podcast, please send it along. Spread the love, spread the word. We would very much appreciate it. Here at Delve Psych, we offer individual, couples group, and family therapy. So if you're interested in a free 15-minute consultation call, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And please do check out our Substack. If you like the topics that we talk about here on the pod, then you will love our blog. And that's at delvepsych.substack.com. Check it out.
Check it out. And also, I wanted to mention we do have another one of those pro bono slots available. I know this is on delay, so it's entirely possible that this gets filled by the time that people are listening, but we have a pro bono slot available, and we do have some very, very, very low fee slots remaining available. So even if you're not necessarily sharing the whole podcast to get a new podcast listener, maybe you share it to say these people, this practice has therapists available that can see people on extremely low fee if they're in Illinois.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Adam. All right. So today's topic is one of your ideas, Adam. It is how do kids learn how to fight?
Yeah, actually, this was sent to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a listener question.
Even better.
Right. Yeah. What do you think? How do kids learn how to fight?
Well, I think of like social learning theory, like Bandura. That's where my mind goes.
Hell yeah. That feels like a success of graduate school education and the didactic program. This was one of the first things that came to your mind. Hell yeah.
It was.
Why don't we talk a little bit about Bandura social learning theory? What's going on with Bandura social learning theory? You want to do it or should I?
I'll start and then you can fill in the holes. How about that?
Sure.
So basically kids are very observant. And there was a study, I guess, of who was hitting the clown.
Oh, I don't know if I remember the details of this terribly well.
Okay. Well, basically kids viewing others and the ways that they deal with conflict, their behaviors, kids will mimic. And so I wish I pause. Maybe we should.
Let's take a look.
Maybe we should. We should get the exact correct details of this. Yes, so we just rewatched the experiment with the Bobo doll. And I remembered it was a clown-looking doll, but I forgot the name. So yeah, it's Bobo, the doll.
Bobo.
Bobo. And it was conducted in the 60s. And so basically they had Bandura had children watch adults aggressively punch, kick this Bobo clown doll. And basically his whole experiment and social learning theory really is about how we learn behaviors through observation. So the kids that watched these adults perform these aggressive behaviors on this Bobo doll, the child, once they got a chance to go in with the Bobo doll, they imitated the same aggressive behaviors, punching, kicking. They even imitated the verbal abuse towards the Bobo doll. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff. We really do learn from observation, not just direct experience or reinforcement. So that's really what the study was all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me nerd on some science crap for just a second too. So this was what's called an experimental design. There's also such things as quasi-experimental or even just correlational designs for studies. This is an experimental design whereby essentially, so statistics work through comparison, meaning we always need to be comparing one thing to another thing. And what we establish as the baseline comparator, if you will, is our kind of control group. So we do nothing to them, or we do as close to nothing to them as possible. The very act of coming into a psychology lab and being run through a psychological experiment is something, but we want to try to strip anything that's related to the variables of interest away from the context as we possibly can for all those individuals in the control group. Then you compare them to another group where you do something to them. So hold all possible variables completely equal in both conditions, except for the ones that you mean to be testing.
Yeah.
So we walk into the same lab, we met the exact same people, we do it at the exact same time, if at all possible. We got the exact same instructions. The only thing that's different is the thing that we mean to make different. And your strict adherence to those protocols is super important to essentially figuring out the specificity. If I see a change in behavior, it is because of this one small thing that I've done differently to this group relative to that group. So I say all that to say, and by the way, people would be randomly assigned to these groups. So we wouldn't end up having a systematic issue where the first 50 people go into the control group, then the second 50 people go into the experimental group where they do see this aggressive behavior towards a doll. The reason why we do that is because you don't want to have an accidental temporal effect. For instance, judges are harsher in their punishments for people that have been convicted of crimes before lunch. So you'd never want an effect like that, where accidentally you're affecting the way that people are making decisions and engaging in the process. You want to randomly assign them so that sometimes at 9 a.m. you go into the control group, sometimes at 9 a.m. you go into the experimental group. So maybe people are just more aggressive before they had a sandwich. In fact, I will attest to the fact that they tend to be. So,
man, that sucks if you get if your court appointment is before lunch. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I think you maybe ask your lawyer if we could push that to 1.
I didn't realize that. That's fascinating. Okay, anyways, continue.
So anyway, you got a control group, you got an experimental group. And in the video that you see online, they're only going to show you the experimental group. But essentially what they're showing is when a child was shown aggression toward this doll, then they became aggressive toward the doll. And they became aggressive in similar ways that the actor that was aggressing against the doll was engaging. That's part 1 of this. But in the control group, they wouldn't have been aggressive toward the doll. That's not what they did. What we saw in the video was that kids were using the same tools and approaches to attacking the doll. They used the same kinds of language. They used the same mallet. They sat on top of the doll and punched it in the same way that the actor did. So there's that mimicry component, and what that tells us about Bandura social learning theory in general, as well as the broader scholarship on Bandura social learning theory, is that we're paying attention to how people do things and what they do as a means of figuring out what works. So we're constantly scanning our environment and learning from others. Oh, they did this, then I'll do that. Or they did this and it went poorly, then I will not do that.
Yeah. So essentially children have their eyes wide open and they're taking it all in and they're learning. So in this question of how do children learn how to fight, perhaps from the adults in their life, perhaps they learn from their parents. And
very much so. We're absolutely paying attention to how people are fighting around us. So what conflict am I seeing and what role does that have? What impact does that have on me? Plus also, again, as a parent, you are the source of truth and understanding. You are the gateway to figuring this world out for a long time for your children. It's not until later that they start to branch out and get other sources of influence and impact. Right. So what you show them, they will learn.
Yeah. It reminds me of a song from Into the Woods, the musical.
Okay.
And the line is, careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Um,
Yeah.
yes.
There's Bandura social learning theory.
Yes. Um,
You want to know
it's,
what's cool about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it's just my theater kid coming out. Anyways, continue.
No, that's great. Actually, I want to show you really quickly this other video. We can't show it to the listener, but I'll try to link it in the show notes. But I wanted to show this to Allie as another really cool example of social learning theory, because it's not just humans. It's not just kids. We as adults are doing it, but also animals learn from one another. They watch what one another are doing, and they will adopt the strategies that they see. It's very deeply baked into what it means to even be an animal, not just a human. So let me show you this, and then we can talk about it.
Okay. I don't even know how to explain that video.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. All right, so we got a little doggy, and there's this. The owner is kind of trying to hand the dog this light up toy ball thing, but he's kind of stopping the dog from being able to take it. He can't quite take the toy, but the dog clearly wants to grab the toy. So that's part one.
And then there's like a puppet that the
That
dog
looks like
owner
the
is
dog.
using, and that puppet is actually biting onto the toy. And when that puppet does that, the owner hits the puppet on top of the head.
Does not hit the dog. Hits
No,
the
not
puppet
the dog. Hits the puppet on the top of the head.
repeatedly.
So then the owner brings the toy back to the dog, like, okay, you want to bite it? You want to bite it? And the dog's like, I'm not biting that thing. I don't want to get hit in the top of the head.
So the dog watched this whole scenario play out and learned just by watching.
Yes.
If I bite that toy, I'm going to get bonked on the noggin.
Yep. Fascinating. And so I could see why, obviously, the dog wouldn't want to imitate that behavior, because obviously there was some sort of punishment with that. Like, he doesn't want to get hit in the head. But I'm wondering, like, in the Bobo the doll scenario, I guess there wasn't necessarily a clear indicator of, like, I don't know, maybe the kids did observe some sort of catharsis in the adult, some sort of like positive reward, I guess, for behaving in this way. I don't know. It's clear to me why the dog didn't want to do that action, as far as the kid observing the adult punching the doll. I'm like, I don't know, are they just doing it because that's what they saw, or did they see some sort of like positive circumstance to performing that action, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we kind of get, I'm sorry, I'm going to rant.
Okay.
So the idea of positive reinforcement, negative punishment, etc., all of that comes from behavioral psychology. And behavioral psychology works extremely well with animals, generally speaking, with animals.
Yeah.
When you start getting into humans, the psychology is just much, much, much more complicated.
Yeah.
And the smarter that an animal is, the not as like an individual animal, but as a species, the more that some of these other psychological processes can start to show up, essentially, as well as some that we don't have, right? Like they're psychological things that other organisms can do that we can't. I think like eels can sense the electricity in the water or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but they've got features we don't. We got features they don't. But there is this general evolutionary trend towards certain abilities. For instance, the Rouge test is a really interesting one, where you put a dot on the forehead of an animal, and then you put them in front of a mirror. What do? A gorilla attacks the mirror. And they're like, fucking gorilla, I'm gonna kill that fucking gorilla in that mirror. I think bears also attack the mirror. But elephants are like, holy shit, they put a dot on my head. And they start
What is this?
playing with it. They
Yeah.
start playing with their own head, right? So that displays a kind of theory of mind, a kind of complex cognition that says, I know that that's me, and I'm able to self-refer back to me. The mirror test too. Elephants are fascinating. They'll start looking at their own teeth and tusks and everything like that. They'll be like, "What's in my mouth?" I'd suddenly have this
I
ability
love
to look
it.
at me. But even like magpies can do that. Various animals can do that. There are other skills that other animals are able to do. So clearly dogs are able to socially learn in this way. I don't know whether a snake is able to socially learn in this way. I don't think so. I'm
Mm.
not sure if one snake sees another snake do a thing, if they will avoid doing that thing. But part of what has to happen in order for social learning to occur is a much more fundamental process called mentalizing to some degree, like which is essentially building a mental model of others' behaviors and maybe even intentions. So there's this kind of delicate balance between these two things. It's not one to one, like this stimulus, that consequence, this stimulus, that reward. It's also, well, what were you trying to do? So Puppet
Yeah.
Dog is trying to grab the ball, and when Puppet Dog is trying to grab the ball and have fun with the ball, then there are consequences, and I can kind of build this general model for what it was trying to do and what happened when it tried to do that thing. So that's when we start to kind of get into this idea of mentalizing. Let me pause here, make sure I know where I'm going with all of this. One second.
Sure.
So I think one of the big problems with the way that we think about the behavioral psychology piece of this is, firstly, like, we learned a lot about behavioral psychology in high school and AP Psych and early Psych 101 courses, and there is interesting stuff there, and there are foundational principles that do have a role to play in the way that organisms end up engaging with the environment around them. But as soon as you add higher levels of cognition,
Yeah.
as well as shift the context a little bit, you'll end up with vastly different reactions and responses, especially from humans, but even other animals. A lot of the pigeons in some of those behavioral psychology experiments were starved. They were starving, and then we give them a pellet of food and see how motivated they are for a pellet of food. I would be too if you starved me for a
Obviously.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then some of the experiments with rats, if you put rats in the right context, they would pick a soft, warm, comfortable place over a place that gave them more food. They would pick togetherness with other rats instead of more food or heroin. That was a study they did, was giving rats heroin. So there is this kind of communal social element to it, and it gets way more complex than we are often taught in Psych 101.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two big takeaways from that whole rant is, firstly, people are not rats, and also rats are more complex than you'd think.
Mm. No, it's also fascinating. Yeah, so essentially, like, the kids in this experiment modeling the adults and what they do can't just be boiled down to rewards and punishments. That's not.
It's too simple. The other thing that we both noticed when we were watching that video too was the idea that the kind of violence that was being that Bobo was subjected to generalized. This is actually it is a behavioral psychology term where one behavior will kind of expand out into similar behaviors. So it's not just I will do exactly what I saw the other person do. It's that I get that we generally should be violent toward this thing. And so now I'm going to engage in novel forms of violence. So one of the examples was they picked up the little toy gun and shot it, which the actor never did in either condition.
Right.
So the people in the kids in the control group weren't as violent toward the doll. The kids in the experimental group were violent, but also then came up with new ways of being violent.
It's a scary thought. It's really scary. And and yeah, we could see how this could play out, and in real life.
Right.
And so again, how do kids learn how to fight? They watch and they learn. So
And we should clarify, they don't just watch their parents. They watch each other. They watch caregivers. They watch teachers. So really they watch the various people on the soccer pitch fighting with each other. They're watching everyone and learning from everyone, but parents are especially important, especially early on.
yeah.
And also then they start practicing with each other and engaging in their own relational experiences and kind of have a trial and error from there too.
Yeah. Scary stuff, but important, and really like important studies in the psychology profession that we're talking about today. So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
All right, new quote. Just do the fucking thing.
This is a Brett Goldstein quote. Somebody asked him for his, greatest piece of advice, and it was just do the fucking thing. You're thinking about doing it. You're thinking about whether you should do it. Just fucking do it. And I think we can get ourselves caught in this paralysis in like, oh, should I do it? What should I do? When should I do it? Is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? What happens if just do it. Just do the thing. Not in all circumstances, of course, but with some degree of planning and understanding of the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. I think there's real wisdom in quit analyzing, start doing. And I will actually say, I don't talk about this very much on here or in very many contexts, but as a business owner, this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making when they try to run a business is or start a business or think about starting a business or something of that nature. They'll spend a lot of time hyper analyzing things way out in advance. And many of those scenarios that you're analyzing never come to bear. So be smart, be careful, think ahead, of course, but you have to start acting. I would argue, start acting in ways that give you data, give you information, start acting in ways that are low risk so that you can get a lot of data from low risk actions, but not no risk. Don't try to figure out everything before you start anything. Start doing small things and learn as you go. Just do the fucking thing. You'll learn.
Just go for it. Like if you wait until it's perfect to launch, then you're going to be waiting forever. You're never going to do the thing.
And we're so afraid of making mistakes, dude. You're gonna.
You are.
What if bad thing happens? It's gonna.
It's gonna. What's that thing you say? Do it before you're ready. Do it a little before you're ready.
Do it a little before you're ready. People will say, I'm not ready yet. Well, do it a little before you're ready.
Yeah. Yep. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Adam. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As always, if you're interested in our services, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And check out our Substack at delvepsych.substack.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Crushed it.